Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist, and today we're going to be doing a TG Assault Mode deck profile. So I'm really excited for this one because I actually didn't build this deck all alone this time. I actually built it with one of my patrons named Yugioh. So I really quickly want to give a shout out to Yugioh and say thank you so much for all the help that you put in building in this deck too. And I really appreciate you helping me out with this deck. And thank you so much for playing against me with this deck and giving me the idea to build it in the live stream over on StaringAtGames. If you guys are unfamiliar with that, we actually do live streams over on StaringAtGames, which is down in the description below if you want to go subscribe to the gaming channel. We do live streams over there and do play testing against you guys for all the deck profiles, a lot of the deck profiles on the channel, and the live duels as well. So without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell in there, Syncron part notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon on the description below for all those awesome rewards, like getting your name searched for every single video, getting a signed card to the mail, or even getting to request a deck profile every single month to your patron, along with test hands. And thank you, Yugioh, again for your help with this deck. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing a single copy of TG Halberd Cannon Assault Mode. So this card is absolutely boss. What this card basically does is, as soon as it hits the field, it just has some amazing effects. That it cannot be normal summon or set, it must be special summon with Assault Mode activate, which is all of your Assault Mode monsters. And it also has the ability that when your opponent would summon a monster, quick effect, you can negate the summon. If you do, banish that monster, and all special summon monsters your opponent controls. That is insanely good just to get you that on the field. It also has the ability that when this card on the field is destroyed, you can target one TG Halberd Cannon in your graveyard and special summon it, ignoring its summoning condition, so it also replaces itself. This is one of the craziest boss monsters in the entire game of Yu-Gi-Oh! And actually, I played against this and I had to wiggle my way out of actually playing against this card, and it uses so many resources to actually out this card. It's ridiculous, and it's so good. So let's get into the rest of the deck. So we're going to be playing 3 copies of TG Screw Serpent. Screw Serpent is really good because if this card is normal or special summon, you get to target a level 4 or lower TG monster in your grave and special summon that monster, but you negate effects, and you can also banish this card from the graveyard to target a TG monster you control and increase its level or reduce its level by 1, which helps you with a lot of different synchro plays. We then play 3 copies of TG Warwolf. TG Warwolf helps out because when a level 4 or lower monster is special summoned, except during the damage step, you can instantly put this card on your side of the field from your hand. And also, during the end phase, if this card's in the graveyard, because it was destroyed on the field and sent to the graveyard, then you can add a TG monster from your deck to your hand, which is a really good card effect, except for another copy of itself. We then play 3 copies of Booster Raptor. Booster Raptor is really neat because if you control a TG monster, you can special summon this card from your hand, and you can only use the effect of this card once per turn. And once per turn, during the end phase, if this card is in the graveyard because it was destroyed on the field and sent to the graveyard, you can add another copy of a TG monster from your deck to your hand, except another copy of itself, which is pretty good. We then play 2 copies of Gear Zombie. You can target a TG monster you control and special summon this card, and then the targeted monster to this is 1,000 attack. So basically it's a free summon because you're usually using whatever TG monster you target it as a material for a synchro summon anyways, so it's not that big of a deal, to be honest, to lose the 1,000 attack. I then play 2 copies of Drillfish. Drillfish is really cool too because you can attack directly with this card, and if all monsters you control are TGs, then you can special summon this card from your hand, and then when a TG monster you control inflicts damage to your opponent, you can target a monster your opponent controls and destroy it, which is also a pretty good effect. It only has 100 attack, but being able to pop a monster, not bad. We then play 2 copies of Tank Grub. So Tank Grub is probably one of my favorite of them all, and it's one of the best extenders in the entire deck that if this card you control is used for a summon of a TG monster, then you can treat it as a non-tuner as well. And if this card is sent to the graveyard as a synchro material for a TG monster, you can special summon a Tank Grub token to your side of the field that's a TG token that's a level 1/0/0, which is a pretty good effect just to be able to get an additional token on your side of the field for additional synchro plays. For the other cards we're playing a single copy of Miscellaneousaurus because you can use the copy of Miscellaneousaurus with your copy of Booster Raptor because you can discard it to the graveyard and then immediately banish this card to special summon a Booster Raptor from the deck. You just need 1 copy of it because it's searchable by Fossil Dig and it's really easy to get out in the deck. We then play 3 copies of Psyreflector. The Psyreflectors are fantastic in this deck because you have to use them in order to go into your Halberd Cannon. Basically, if you open up one of these, you are in the golden seat because what this card does is if this card is normal or special summon, you get to add an Assault Mode Activate or a card that specifically lists Assault Mode Activate from your deck to your hand. Then, once you do, you reveal an Assault Mode Activate in your hand and then target one monster in the graveyard that specifically lists Assault Mode Activate. And if you do, specials on that target and increase its level by 1 to 4, depending on what level you need it to be for a synchro play, Or you can just link them away for Crystal Needle Fiber, like I normally do, get another monster on my side of the field, and then link them away for Halberd Cannon to then, or not Halberd Cannon, Trident Launcher to be able to go for additional plays, because all it requires is a TG monster, a TG tuner, and another monster. So you basically have a really easy play to go in for your copy of your TG Assault Mode Halberd Cannon. We then play a single copy of Assault Beast as well. This is a card you're always going to add with Psy Reflector to add to your hand, to then discard to add your copy of your Assault Mode Activate. I just play this card as a one-of in this particular deck because it's only really needed as a one-of anyways, because you're just going to search it with your Psy Reflector and then you're going to pop off from there. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're going to be playing a single copy of 1 for 1. 1 for 1 is really, really good because 1 for 1 lets you special summon a monster that's level 1 from the deck by sending another monster from your hand to the graveyard, which a lot of your monsters actually benefit from going to the grave. We then play a single copy of our Emergency Teleport. Emergency Teleport is really good in the deck because it can special summon a level 1 or level 3 or lower psychic monster from the deck, which is really good in this particular build. 1 copy of Called by the Grave. Called by the Grave just stops our opponent's hand traps, and we do need to do that in this deck because we have so many other cards that need to go off in this deck. 1 copy of Monster Reborn. Monster Reborn just is a good revival card in this deck. Same thing with World Legacy Succession. I play 2 copies of it because it is a once per turn ability, which is the only reason I played it this number. I would love to play this card at 3, but I honestly can't justify it because it's a once per turn and I can't really search it. So if I draw into multiples of it, it's a little bit of a brick. I love this card though in this deck because it lets you target any monster in a graveyard and special summon it back to a zone that a link monster points to, which Trident Launcher has plenty of zones for you to be able to special summon to. I then play 3 copies of Where Arfdal. So Where Arfdal is really a fantastic card in this deck because it lets you add a monster from your deck to your hand that's a level 1 if you control level 1, but if you don't normal summon the level 1 monster that you added, you do lose a 2,000 life points during the end phase, but that's not that big of a deal when you think about it because you're going to end up with some insane cool plays. We then play 3 copies of Fossil Dig. Fossil Dig basically adds our Miscellaneous Ores from our deck to our hand or our Booster Raptor from deck to hand as well. We then play 3 copies of Fire Formation Tinky. The Fire Formation Tinky is here to search the Warwolf, which is very important for this particular build. You do have some instances that your opponent might negate your Psy Reflector to search your copy of your Assault Beast from your deck, so you can actually use this to grab the Assault Beast, which is pretty good. It helps out the deck a lot to be able to grab those out of the deck with Warwolf. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps. So for the traps, I'm only playing 2 copies of Assault Mode Activate. You really only need to, because you're only probably going to roll into your copy of your Assault Mode monster once in this entire build, because you tribute a Synchro Summon monster, special summon an Assault Mode version of that monster from your extra deck, or from your deck, which is pretty good, but the only time you're going to use it is with your Halberd Cannon. I tried to work Stardust into this deck as well, but it was a little bit hard with the way that the extra deck was, and the main deck is a little bit tight, so you can do it, but it's a little bit more difficult. And Synchro Summoning for 8 is not hard, but it's a little bit out of the way, so I didn't play Stardust in my particular build, but it does work in the build. I then play 2 copies of my own personal attack in this deck, and that is 2 copies of Scrap Iron Signal. Scrap Iron Signal is a weird, cool card in this deck, because what this card does is when your opponent activates a monster effect, while you control a Synchro summoned monster that lists a Synchro monster as a material, negate the activation, and also, after that, set this card face down instead of sending it to the graveyard. So you just have basically a Speed Spell 3 that's constantly negating every single turn that sets itself back face down, which is really, really good because you have a lot of cards in the extra deck that can go off with this card, like Cosmic Blazar Dragon, your copy of TG Blade Blaster, Halberd Cannon, Satellite Warrior. You just have a lot, like 4 cards in the extra deck that can make this card always live, which is what's really, really good to pop off with this card. I thought about playing it at 1 and playing the Stardust Assault mode, which you can go that route if you want to, but it's just an option for you guys. I love this card in this deck. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're going to be playing a single copy of TG Halberd Cannon. Halberd Cannon is the main card of the deck that you're trying to Synchro Summon into. It requires a tuner Synchro monster and 2 or more non-tuner Synchro monsters. So basically, it's going into Quasar Dragon or Blazar Dragon. And when this card cannot be special summoned except by synchro summon, and then once per turn, when this face-up card on the field, when this card's face on the field, you can negate the summon of a monster and destroy it. And then when this card is sent from the field to the grave, you can select one TG monster in your grave and special summon it back to your field, which is really good just to be able to get you a TG to replace it. But the main effect of this card is going for the assault mode version. We then played a single copy of Blade Blaster. I love Blade Blaster. I think that when the new card comes out, the Stardust expansion, I think that's what it's called, TG Stardust version, I think when that comes out, I might drop the Blade Blaster for it. But what this card basically does is it requires a synchro monster and one or more non-tuner synchro monsters to summon this card. And when an opponent activates a spell or trap that targets this card, you can send one card from your hand to the grave to negate that effect. And then once per opponent's turn, you can remove from play one TG monster from your graveyard to remove this card from play, on the field from play, and then during the next standby phase, you special summon this card back to the field, which is pretty good. We then play a single copy of Cosmic Blazar because you can go into it if you go into your second play. It is kind of necessary to play it at 1. You can play Quasar Dragon if you want to play Quasar Dragon over it, but I thought Cosmic Blazar would be pretty good in this build because what this card does is basically you can activate one of these effects per turn by banishing this card. Then when your opponent activates a card, you negate the activation if you destroy that card. When your opponent would summon a monster, you negate the summon, and if you do, destroy this card, and then banish this card, and then when your opponent would declare an attack, you can negate the attack and end the battle phase as well, which is really good. One copy of Satellite Warrior. Satellite Warrior is really easy to go into and can pop multiple cards on the field, which is fantastic. Borreload Savage can just get you additional negates on your side of the field, which is also really, really good. One copy of TG Power Gladiator. Power Gladiator basically is here so you can go for a copy of your Cosmic Blazar or your Halberd Cannon because you can use this card as one of your level 5 monsters to go into. TG Hyper Librarian. Hyper Librarian is fantastic in this particular build because basically what this card is here for is to get you additional draw power, and not only get you draw power, but also have a loner level 5 on your side of the field, so you can go 2 plus 5 and plus 5 to go directly into your copy of Halberd Cannon, or go 5 plus 2, or you go 5, 5, 2, or you go with the tuner monster being the 2 or one of the 5 monsters. It's totally up to you. You have some 5s in the deck, you have some 2s in the deck. We played 2 copies of Star Guardian. Star Guardian is ridiculous in this deck and is really, really, really good. What this card does is once per chain during your opponent's main phase, you can quick effect immediately this card resolves, synchro summon using monsters you control, including this card. And if this card is special summon, you can target a TG in your graveyard and add it back to your hand. And then during the main phase, you can special summon a TG from your hand. You can only use each of the following effects of this card once per turn. This card is a fantastic play starter in the entire deck. We play a single copy of Formula Syncron. Formula Syncron is really good in the deck because when this card is synchro summon, you get to draw, and then during your opponent's turn, you can quick effect immediately synchro summon, which is really good. One copy of Dragonfly. I play one Dragonfly in my build because it's just a good level 2 to go into your plays, and also you can select one TG synchro monster you control and send it to the grave, and then if all monsters were synchro summoned are still in the grave, you can basically desynchro, put them back on the field, and then resynchro in, especially if you have Hyper Librarian to be able to go into it, which is really good. And then I play a single copy of Access Code because it gives me additional pops. 2 copies of Trident Launcher because it's the best card in the extra deck outside of TG Halberd, because basically what this card does is if this card is link summon, you can special summon one TG monster from your hand, deck, and graveyard in defense position to zones this card points to, and also you cannot special summon monsters for this turn except for TGs, which is not that big of a deal because the majority of stuff we're playing is TGs anyways. And also it has the ability that you can once per turn, once your opponent attack or targets a TG synchro monster this card points to, that they can't your opponent cannot target TG synchro monster this card points to with card effects, which is really good. And then play a single copy of an honorary TG monster, which is essentially Crystalline Needle Fiber, because this card is fantastic in the deck to go into this, and then put a tuner monster that's a TG monster on your side of the field, and then immediately use this plus the tuner to go into Trident Launcher. So this card is a great extender to go into Trident Launcher. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. It's a really good deck. Thank you again, Chibi Gohan, for helping me out with this. It's a really fun deck to play with, and I highly recommend that if you guys have not picked up TGs, you definitely should if you love synchro monsters like I do. This deck is really fun, and like I said, you can work Stardust Assault mode into this deck as well if you want to play that in this particular build. And yeah, we'll see you guys in the next video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell next to become part of the notification squad, and see you guys in the next video. Bye, guys!